Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. On behalf of Tompkins County, I'm honored to welcome our residents, legislators, and county staff to this third and final public engagement session for the Center of Government project. Tonight represents an important milestone in a vision that has been more than 20 years in the making. Over 2 decades of discussion, planning, and collaboration have brought us to this exciting stage, where a proposed design solution is ready to be shared, reviewed, and refined with the community it is meant to serve. Your participation is essential. This meeting is an opportunity to gather your final comment, build qualitative endorsement, and make minor adjustment needed to move confidently towards a final design. We encourage you to ask questions, share perspectives, and openly engage throughout the process. Your voice truly shapes the outcome. Thank you again for being here. Your commitment to Tompkins County and for helping guide this transformative project forward is important. Let us have a thoughtful, energizing, and productive conversation together. We welcome those on Zoom. We'll open the platform to ask questions as we go through the project. So first and foremost, I welcome Holt to kick us off with where and how we got here.
Yeah, so first of all, we have a few empty seats left, but thank you for coming out to hear about our project tonight. A little bit about the agenda overall. We'll share sort of some progress and some development for about a half an hour, and then we left about a half an hour for questions and discussions at the end. Just in terms of the components of the project that we'll review, we're going to talk about site design. We're going to give you an update on the sustainability in terms of how the project is developing. We'll show you more of the interiors, the floor plans, and then some images of the interior. And we'll sort of show you an update on how the exterior envelope of the building is progressing in terms of the aesthetic. This is actually the final component of the community engagement. If you remember, we call it Town Hall Meeting number 1, but that was actually a series of 5 different meetings where we went out to the different municipalities. And those meetings were really about collecting sort of community priorities and needs. We got a number of great stories sort of illustrating some of the current challenges that the community faced relative to getting access to services and even knowing sort of where to go to collect services. And together we identified some success matrix that we wanted some success metrics that we're going to use to sort of talk about, what makes this, how do we know if the project has been a success in the end? Town Hall Meeting 2, then, we collected all of that, the feedback. We had a survey that went out, which was collecting that data. We summarized that data with you in a survey, and then we shared 3 different options for like different ways that the building, could go in terms of its development. And then based on your feedback from that meeting, we sort of focused on a single option. Since that, meeting number 2, when we started focusing on a single option, we spent a lot of time working with the different users of this building, so the different various departments that will go in. We've had many meetings with Arel and Corsa, the county administrator and county facilities department, who are sort of our main point of contact through the course of design. And we've had a few meetings with the legislature, both the special committee of downtown facilities and also the legislature, to sort of refine what you're going to see tonight is sort of the result of all of that work. So meeting number 3, and this is the final component of engagement, we want to share with you where we are with the building. We're about halfway through design, like in terms of the big schedule, but as we design more, things get harder and more expensive to change. So there's still an opportunity to sort of make adjustments and fine tuning of the design, but we want to share with you where we are and then sort of collect your feedback while we can still make some minor adjustments. So this is our overall project schedule that is still tracking as it has been from the beginning of the project. This top star is representing the end of the community engagement process. So this is where we are today. This bar is schematic design, design development, and contract documents. So together, those 3 bars represent the investment in the design phase of the project. This is bidding, and then green represents construction. So you can see we're about halfway through the design of the new building. This is the schedule for the deconstruction of the 3 existing buildings. So you can see we're nearing the end of the bidding and salvage period. So that's when we're taking the things out of that building that we want to repurpose, finding new markets and new homes for materials, finalizing the bid to sort of deconstruct the structure and the envelope of the building, and we'll be moving into construction there fairly soon. And then the backfill renovation projects are sort of split. After we get this project under construction, these 2 projects under construction, we'll sort of dig more into those backfill renovations at Old Jail and Old Courthouse. So is Corsa or Norma presenting some of these slides?
I will kind of go over these with you. So at the direction of the Legislature, County Administration undertook an evaluation of 4 potential options for establishing the center of government. And we reviewed them with the legislature priorities for the center of government in mind, and they identified 3 key criteria as their goal: proximity to the existing county campus, the availability of parking, and allowable use under the current zoning. What we found was many of the evaluated alternatives did not satisfy all 3 of these criteria, although they did satisfy some, particularly regarding the proximity and zoning. Thanks. So we looked at 4 options. We have, of course, the new construction, the status quo for the new center of government. We looked at the Shops at Ithaca Mall property as a consideration. I'll just go over them we'll delve into them a little bit more. The Herald Square property, and then Cornell Business Park. And each site was reviewed for estimated cost, renovations, or upfit and accessibility, operational impacts, or other considerations. So as we look at the new construction has the highest capital investment, but it also provides a purpose-built facility designed specifically for county functions. It ensures full accessibility and compliance with modern standards, and it allows consolidation of operations in a true one-stop governmental center. The alternatives, the Shops at Ithaca Mall, Herald Square, and Cornell Business Park, have lower upfront acquisition and renovation costs, but each introducing some challenges. So in 2 of the instances, it'll pull the government for the Shops at Ithaca Mall and, Shops at Ithaca Mall and the Cornell Business Park. It would pull the government activities from the Civic Center and away from the existing county campus. There's some accessibility concerns. If you could go to the next one, Bernard, thank you. There's some accessibility concerns due to existing layouts or the building age. I know we had several employees take a look at the Herald Square location, and some of the ADA and public accessibility was of concern. In the instance of the Cornell Business Park, there's multiple buildings requirements that would add security, staffing, and operational hurdles. And that could be true also with just moving from the city core, from the center, civic center, adding additional security and operational hurdles would be evident. And then finally, just renovation estimates remain conservative because we don't of the unknown building materials and likely major redesign needs. So while it appears that they could be, the alternative properties may have a lower upfront acquisition and renovation costs, there are still many unknowns with those properties. So, and we'll say that the Ithaca Mall and the Cornell Business Park provide access to parking. So it still is the overall conclusion that the new construction provides the strongest long-term value and the most predictable outcomes. I will have your folks.
Yeah, Laura, you want to speak to the site?
Yeah. Great. So our sort of overarching goals for site design going in were to design an outdoor space that was welcoming and useful for the community, as well as being grounded in the uniqueness of our area. And as a personal note, all of us working on the project also are residents, so this feels especially important for us to get right. Several months ago, we provided some initial sketches, and that's one of which you're looking at right now. These were inspired by local hydrology and geology. Can we go to the next one, please? We got some great feedback on these, and we also got some great information as part of the survey. Can we go to the next slide, please? Next one, please. So many of the things that folks provided us as things that were important for them were already incorporated in the initial designs, but we used this feedback to further refine and just produce a better design. Can we go to the next slide, please? Great. So what you're looking at right now is an updated design that responds to the feedback as well as the updated building footprint. It incorporates the additional requested elements as secure bicycle storage, as well as locating and screening utilities such as a emergency generator, transformer, et cetera. And finally, it seeks to reduce the cost of construction while still fulfilling the initial goals of the project. So just as a broad overview, some of the refinements that we incorporated here were to reduce hardscape, to increase shade and green space, and these were specific things that we're responding to as part of the survey. You'll see that the building perimeter is wrapped in plantings and built-in seating, stone seating. The main entry includes access both by stairs as well as a sloped walkway. And the entry to the stairs and the sloped walkway are located adjacent to each other for universal access. There's a community plaza, as with the initial two designs. There's a community plaza that's located between the Center of Government building and the Boardman House. And that plaza includes, unit paving, quarry block seating, and hopefully will be porous paving. And then if you look, I wish I had a laser. Do we have a laser pointer?
I might be able to point for you.
Okay. If you look behind the Boardman House, there is a space that is up a little higher, that is parking, or it could also be flexible use for special events. So we tried to make the design as multifunctional as possible to allow for this flexibility. And I think I've touched on all of our major points here.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we can take questions on site right now, and then we'll move on to sustainability. Any questions or comments on site?
If you could just talk into your mic a little bit so they can hear you on Zoom too.
Yeah, maybe we take a couple minutes on questions on site before we move on. Okay.
Where are the employees parking?
Employees are street parking, and then we have a couple other lots that we're looking at for employees. Yeah. Okay, great. A little bit on sustainability. We don't.
I think Mike had a question.
I just wanted to ask on this parking, how many parking spaces now and how many based on the design that we're looking at?
I don't have a net difference here, and that is something that we can continue to refine. But there would be reduced parking as compared to what's currently exists on site.
Are we talking a few spaces? Are we talking many spaces?
As in the reduction or the
Yes.
total number? There will be a reduction in the total number. Once again, I don't have the total numbers here. I would point out that because of the increase in the number of people who would be on campus, even retaining all of the existing spaces wouldn't come close to providing adequate parking for the employees who would be in the new building.
Okay, I understand that, but I just kind of wondered what you're projecting here. Maybe you could get back to us with that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep.
Looks like there's a question on Zoom.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm from the First Baptist Church and also a resident. And one of our comments, and it's probably in here, but I just, there are a lot of elders all around the churches and other things in surrounding DeWitt Park. And where would, like, say, a small bus like Gadabout be able to drop someone off?
So that would be possible in the parking lot as we're showing it currently designed. If you see that flexible use parking space.
That blue thing?
Yeah.
Either there or there to the left. Yep. So.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
So that's shown as a different color because it's potentially porous unit pavers such as brick that would contribute to the aesthetics, but the functionality would be similar.
Yeah, or like, you know, like a small bus or, you know, something like that. I mean,
Yep.
Would that be accommodated somewhere in here with turnaround and stuff?
Yep, absolutely. So we are anticipating potential fire truck access to the rear, as well as things like delivery vehicles, and definitely a gadabout vehicle should be able to pull in there as well.
And then that would have ramping and stuff into the building from the rear?
The entry to the new building would be in the front.
So I mean, yeah, so I mean, so if somebody came in a gadabout vehicle, which can bring people in wheelchairs, where could they drop people off? I mean, that's a pretty hefty route around if they get dropped off back in the flex space. Is there pull off on Buffalo Street or anything like that?
I'm not sure if there are ADA spaces currently shown, and that's a further discussion in coordination with the city, but that would be a possibility.
Yeah, I think that's important. If this is to be truly accessible, it's not just up the stairs and up the ramp, but arrival in vehicles that are, you know, people can get in and out of the vehicles, or the people can help someone in a wheelchair. I just use gadabout as an example, but you know, there are other vehicles like that. I think those really should be considered somehow to do that.
Yeah, that's great feedback. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's not available, for example, at the library, you know, the public library. It's pretty limited, and I just think that's important. Yep. Amen. Thank you for listening.
Absolutely. Thank you for that great feedback.
Yeah, on that same idea, as far as the curb cut, the other day I was just helping my in-laws who are in late 80s, early 90s get out of Cinemapolis. Now they have a curb cut, so I had somebody else pull around, but they had, I don't know if you call it a curb cut, but anyway, so where you could pull off the road and pull in there. So at this, where the conference center is, there's two of them. There's Yeah, there's one like right in front of Cinemapolis and one pulled back a little bit towards the conference center. So seems like that might, because that's a small gadabout bus could pull there, and you're out of the traffic. So it was, just for loading and unloading. And then later in the day, I saw there was emergency vehicles there too for something. And again, they had a space where they could pull over, and go attend to whatever they needed to attend to, but they weren't blocking traffic.
Great, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that feedback.
Yes.
I have another parking question.
Can you come up to the
So-
mic, Rachel? Thanks.
I had a parking question. So is the main parking lot in the upper right corner, is that going to remain open for people who are visiting the center of government, and then employees will all be on street parking?
So that's currently up for discussion. There will be some parking for EV vehicles, but that's currently being discussed, who exactly those spots will be allocated to.
Okay, and then what were the other lots that you were referring to, that you were looking at?
Part of the traffic study looked at both parking garages and their utilization, and also, what's the lot, that north lot?
400 North Tioga.
400 North Tioga lot that's and that's currently, did you want to say anything else about parking, Corsa?
No, I just wanted to add that at the moment, the county does not provide parking to visitors, for visitors at any of our offices. So we are hoping to have a conversation with the city in terms of how we utilize the parking spaces around the building, if maybe some time for free access within a few minutes for visitors to be able to park there for a couple of minutes and visit the offices and move. But that is a conversation that we intend having as we move forward with the project. But as things stand at the moment, the county does not provide parking at all for any resident at any of our offices at the moment.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to a conversation about where we are from the perspective of sustainability. Personally for me, this is a very exciting aspect of not only this project, but our practice. We tend to think first when we talk about sustainability in terms of energy and emissions. So for this building, we have the opportunity to entirely eliminate on-site fossil fuels by designing an all-electric building. So we're, in addition to just being all-electric, we're focusing on the use of geothermal for heating and cooling, which creates long-term energy carbon reduction. So it's not only a cost benefit to the county, it's also a carbon benefit to the county in terms of the operation of this building. But if we do just look at that in terms of cost, right now the energy modeling that we're doing is projecting a 44 reduction from the baseline in terms of energy use for the building, which we believe will equate to about $34,000 a year in savings. So this first energy and emissions is talking about operational carbon, like the amount of carbon that we're burning to heat and cool and run the building. The second line item, which I really appreciate, the focus that Tompkins County has on all buildings, is embodied carbon as a first cost. So most of the embodied carbon, if you look at where the low-hanging fruit is, it's in concrete and it's in big structural steel. This building uses will use almost no structural steel, and the concrete that we're using is almost exclusively in the foundation system of the building. There aren't a lot of alternatives to that yet. So the building will be structured with heavy timber, and you'll sort of see some of that in the images that Bernard shows later. But so not only are we using heavy timber as the structural system, which is significantly reducing the amount of embodied carbon we're designing into the building, we're also using this heavy timber as a finish. So it's what you'll see and the expression and experience of the building when you walk in. So there's a carbon benefit there, there's a cost benefit there, and we believe there's an experience benefit there of just having all those three systems purchased in that one line item. An office building like this doesn't use an enormous amount of water, but we believe we can reduce the water that would normally be used in an office building by about 30%. From the occupant perspective, a big focus of what we're doing is on the experience of the building, like the sort of the health and just positive sort of lifestyle experience. So some of that comes in the use of low emitting materials and the selection of good finishes, but it also comes in the way that we design the building, so that our vision is from anywhere in this building, you'll be able to stand up and you'll be able to see outside. So like if you're sitting at your cubicle, there are a lot of places that you're sitting that you'll have sort of some visual protection or visual isolation. But if you stand up and look, you'll be able to see maybe through one other interior window, but somewhere you'll be able to see out and see if it's snowing or see if it's 5:30, 6 o'clock and I'm still at the office and it's dark, I better get out of here. So just the experience of being able to see what's going on outside, we feel is important. From a landscape and biodiversity perspective, Laura talked about that one parking lot that we're proposing to be paver rather than asphalt. And that's an important parking lot in terms of the transitional experience to the park, because we have a vision that this whole project is really an extension of DeWitt Park. I mean, we're designing this building as if it's a building in a park. So we're being sensitive to like how we're designing so that we're respecting and extending the experience of, you know, DeWitt Park that we all sort of want to continue to celebrate. And the building itself, in terms of, you know, protecting biodiversity, will utilize bird-friendly glass on all of the glazing of the building. And looking at a rating system like the LEED rating system, every phase of the design, when we complete, we sort of do a review of where we are relative to the LEED rating system, and we're still sort of checking all the LEED Gold boxes. So we're still tracking LEED Gold for this project. Any questions on sustainability? Cool. It's not financial sustainability.
Sorry, could you repeat her question out loud?
Yeah, the question is there an aspect of financial sustainability for the project? I mean, we're sort of designing towards, you know, the budgets and the goals we've been given, and wherever we can, we're, you know, trying to focus on, for example, the mass timber. That's an example of buying one material, reducing carbon, using it as the structural system, using it as the finish system. So wherever we can, we're trying to create the best building for the lowest cost.
I'm more concerned with like the interest rates and how long we'll be paying for it. Can you go up to the mic, Amanda?
I'm assuming it's a 30-year bond. I'm assuming it's at about 4% interest.
That's the part we're not designing. That's
well, but I'm just, you're not into the bonding yet. Okay, and I'm assuming the bonding will have to be approved before any decisions are made about demolition and moving forward.
Not demolition. We're going ahead with that.
The demo's happening. I mean, I guess it's easier to sell a vacant lot, right? Exactly. If need be. Okay, that's really the big thing. Like, we know that Japan's not buying American debt anymore, right? Okay, that's a big thing to consider.
okay. Let's go to the interior.
We have another question on Zoom. Louise?
It's me again. Thank you. Yeah, so I do have a question about the geothermal heating and cooling. I really laud that, and I've heard descriptions that there might be a I don't know what you would call it, but the geothermal heating and cooling might be a kind of a neighborhood type thing, so that other buildings, like would the Boardman House take advantage of that? Could the surrounding buildings? DeWitt Park, you know, is the formative park for the town and then the city of Ithaca. From the 1820s, it was all the churches around the Central Park. And is that, I've heard that described, and I don't know who suggested that. Is that, or are you talking only about putting in geothermal heating and cooling for this building as a separated unit system?
I can address that a little bit.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Louise. So we were hoping for a bigger district. There was reasons that didn't work out. Then the next the next step we looked at was a smaller district, so to speak, like with just county buildings on this block. And one of the things that we ran into with both of those endeavors is that the water table is higher than we thought it might be, so you can only go down so far.
Oh, very good to know. Yeah.
Right, so there was some tests done. And so right now so because of that, you have to put in a lot more wells versus many deep wells. So we're limited on the scope of the project just because of what you wind up with the square footage left. So we're hoping to do that building. I don't know if we're going to be able to do the other buildings here, but we're hoping at least with this project to do the center of government.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. That's very helpful. And then will there be, I know our church submitted, we had like 34 signatories to it. Will there be, this is really, I guess, landscape and biodiversity. When you say no permanent irrigation, does that mean for the vegetation? We've been out in DeWitt Park day and night for 5 years doing our little pollinator garden, but what we have seen in that park is that there is no public water anywhere. And that, you know, it gets really hot, and we're talking about maybe some kind of street people or homeless people, but, you know, young mothers coming out of the city into the park with infants and little kids, and there's no water available. Will there be anything like that available, or any kind of shelter? Maybe this is asking too much of this project, but those are needs that we have identified. I mean, people come up, we have a little spigot outside our church that we use to water our garden, but people come up and take water from it to drink, actually. It's not a good thing, but.
Yeah, I'll take a shot at that. I think it's a great question, and it's exactly why we have these meetings, so we can get this type of feedback from the county. Ultimately, I think from that comment, you know, I see Arel shaking his head, and Corsa was looking at me. It's something that we need to talk about as a team, recognizing the desire to have that, but also, you know, respecting the fact that if we put public, you know, spigots outside the building, Arel's going to have to sort of deal with how we maintain and control and. So I think it's good that we continue to bring these things up, and we'll continue to ask the county these questions. And you know, there's a balance between a maintainable building, and it's hard to make everybody
I understand,
happy.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Just from a humanity, if you're talking about biodiversity, that needs to include people, and we're thrilled that you're going to use native landscape design that integrates into the park. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Susan?
Susan? Susan online, can you hear us? Susan Compton online, can you hear us? Do you want to ask a question?
Okay.
We'll come back to you.
In the meantime, I have a question, or I guess maybe two, actually. What Louise brought up, I think, is important. I know, public water access is something that I've heard wanted downtown elsewise, and it's news to me that people have been getting water from the garden spigot at the church, but that's helpful to know. I guess this was the previous setup, but I was also wondering if, it sounds like maybe not, but if public bathrooms are still included in the design.
Did unmute, so maybe that can help.
No, it won't.
Oh, it seems like Susan's here.
Oh, sorry. Are you ready for me?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a couple of questions. One, if the Boardman House, I'm one of the owners of the Boardman House. If the Boardman House did decide it was feasible for us to join, is it too late to be considered part of the geothermal project?
I would contact Terry at our at our Department of Planning and Sustainability, Terry Carroll, Carroll. Let's see, you could let us know if you need help, or somebody could put it in the chat maybe, how to get his, someone's already on that, we'll give you his email.
Okay, great. And I have one other question. I'm sorry I'm so late. It's going back to the site. Can somebody tell me the measurement, how far apart the Boardman House and the beginning of the new building would be? What's the measurement of that space, the width?
Yeah, we believe it's between 28 and 30 feet.
Okay. And what would be the measurement between the Boardman House foundation and the nearest piling? I'm assuming you'll be driving pilings down in to support the building?
No, we're drilling and then grouting. So there wouldn't be any piles, but the nearest borehole would also be 30 feet.
Okay, but you wouldn't be when they were driving pilings over on Seneca Street, we could feel the ground move. And you're saying you're drilling. Is there less vibration with drilling?
Yes. So when you're driving a pile, you're literally just pushing it with a big weight down through the ground. When you're drilling, it's spinning auger and it's drawing the dirt and sediment up out of the hole as it drills. Okay.
All right. Because my concern is it's a 165-year-old building built in 1865. And so obviously we're worried about the foundation, which has been rock solid. We've never had any cracks in any of the walls inside the building. So that's why I'm asking these questions.
Yeah,
so I'm assuming you're taking that into account.
Yes. No, they're great questions, and we should be well clear of any risk to Boardman or any other adjacent buildings. But having said that, we'll also be documenting, Boardman and Courthouse before and after construction, so and monitoring both locations throughout the drilling and construction to make sure that we're not causing any vibrations that could cause damage to those adjacent buildings.
Okay. And one last question. What ended up being the final height of the building? I'm just wondering how much the Boardman House will be overshadowed by the new building. In the past, I was told, earlier design, I guess, that we would have the space, the width of the current county building next to us before the new building, but obviously it's a lot closer now. So the height of the new building?
Yeah, I think it is. So I don't know if I can't zoom in, but if you look at the top left, this image is really small. It's a 3-story. Well, here you can see in this elevation that we'll show later, that red rectangle, the 3-story red rectangle is about the same size as Boardman. And what we're doing is sort of in the top left of this image, and it would be nice if we can zoom in on it, but you can see the Boardman House red in all of, if you look at the top left of the image, that's the closest sort of sketch that we have. So here's Boardman, and then here is the new center government building. So we're actually sort of celebrating and respecting this little square of Boardman with a similar little red square in our building.
That just warms my heart. Thank you.
Cool.
Quay, is this, or maybe Rel, sorry to interject, but is the new building is further away from the Boardman House than the existing building?
Oh, much farther.
Oh, yes.
And so to Susan's concern about shadowing, there's going to be a lot more space between, so there should be, in essence, more light that gets into that side of the Boardman than had been before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
That's fabulous. Now, the only other thing I will add is we sometimes get icicles on our side of the building, so you wouldn't want a bench anywhere where an icicle could fall on them. The old building was so close to us that the icicles were a concern on regarding people walking into the county building, that they'd be hit by an icicle. So just don't put the benches too close or the bike racks.
That's an appreciated point, and thank you for bringing that up.
Our vision is that the project will sort of put Boardman House back into DeWitt Park as a little jewel. So it'll feel like it's sitting more within the park than it is, next to the center government building. So the park, you can see, sort of wraps around Boardman, and we're sort of separating and celebrating Boardman within DeWitt Park.
That's just fabulous. Thank you.
Quay, I have a couple more questions to the Q&A. We have one that says, can people see outdoors from sitting? Seems important for a worker.
So if you're sitting in your cubicle, you probably won't be able to see outdoors. If you have an office in the building, all of the offices are on the perimeter wall with glass walls, through onto the interior of the building. If you're in a cubicle, there are probably half the cubicles that wouldn't be able to see out. But if you stand up from your cubicle, that's when we're designing towards any. So your cubicle wall is probably 5 feet tall, and then if you stand up, you'd be able to see out of the building. If certain locations of the building need more acoustical separation than a 5 foot tall cubicle wall, we're recommending that maybe we have a foot or 2 feet of glass, at the top of that, so when you stand up, you can still see out of the building.
Great, thank you. Another question was, will you be reusing building materials from 3 buildings in the new building?
So not all 3 buildings, but we're identifying things that we want to reuse and celebrate in the new building. And specifically, I think there are a couple images that Bernard will share, how we're reusing that grate on the front of the professional building, that with all the round circles. And then also it's a beautiful stair adjacent to that grate. Structurally, we can't repurpose that stair, and the rise and run aren't even code compliant, but we're planning to design the main, public stair in this building to sort of mimic how that was structured. So we're trying to sort of draw from a lot of the features of those 3 buildings that have historical relevance and build them into this new center government building.
Great, thank you. And I see that Louise's hand is up as well.
Thank you. The First Baptist Church is a national, state, and local historic structure. And it's a gray stone, rough-cut gray stone building, which is made of materials. It really represents our locale. We have to tuck point that all the time to keep it, the cracking. So if you're going to instrument the old courthouse and the new building, if you could just kind of include us and let us know if there's anything going on, we would very, very much appreciate that, if that's possible. And the other thing is, it just struck me, I laud what you're doing. I think you're doing a great job. Possibility of public water could be somewhere in there between the Boardman House and the rear entry or something, so it could be shut off in the winter. Doesn't have to be really a big expense item, but I think people would soon find if you have celebrations or anything like that. Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment about DeWitt Park. So the county doesn't own DeWitt Park. It's actually owned by one of the churches, I believe.
The church on the corner.
And the city of Ithaca maintains it, and not well. So I think that they should be thinking about putting water there in themselves and maintaining that park better than it is now. I know that, and I know the county would work with them any way we can with that. So.
Yeah, oops, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to respond regarding, so as part of the deconstruction of the existing 3 buildings, we will also be monitoring, this is to Lee's, seismic monitoring to surrounding buildings, especially like your church, the Boardman House, and putting monitors at each building so that we can see if there's any vibration from any of the operations principally through deconstruction, but then also through new construction. We're not doing piles. That was something that I asked our engineering, geotechnical engineers from the beginning, that we don't want to drive piles because of proximity to historic buildings. So the foundation system is a proprietary system, and it's not piles. It's basically you're injecting the soils to bring it up to the soil bearing capacity needed to support a new building. So there's really no vibration because you're not driving piles. It's a little more money, but I think it'll save us money in repairs to adjacent historic buildings.
Can I get back in the queue? About the water, I guess I was saying I also think public water would be a great idea, and public bathrooms. And I know that it takes maintenance, and I know that it's added, it's added work. But it also, this project is going to be the biggest downtown construction project that is ostensibly in the public interest since the Commons redesign, I guess. And so it just makes sense to me to take advantage of we're going to be constructing anyway to fill some needs that are significant, but not that hard to fill, even if they're technically outside of the mission of building a building to do direct government department work. Randy, I hear your point about maybe the city should be doing this, but it doesn't seem to work well to tell another government that they should do something and we're not going to help, or it hasn't so far. And also the DeWitt Park, it doesn't, to my knowledge, inherently have any plumbing or water lines in it in terms of what the city maintains. So that would be a significant change perhaps to put in, whereas maybe I don't build buildings. Maybe it could somehow be looped in more easily to this construction. And then my second question, which is separate from this, is for the parking lots, do we have to worry at all about creating or maybe maintaining heat islands? I saw there's trees placed in there, so that's probably good, but have you thought about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always a balance between putting in trees and putting in as much parking as folks need. So we have tried to balance that in our design. The permeable pavers in the parking lot to the west would create less of a heat island. So that's another argument for permeable paving in that space. So yeah, that's definitely something that we're considering. Also, there would not be a creation of heat island. This design has less impermeable space, so less asphalt than what currently exists. So it's just a matter of how much we're able to reduce that by.
I see Shauna's got a question.
Yeah, and Susan's hand was up as well. We'll take, you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, I got to go, so I appreciate being able to jump the line. I just wanted to come here and say I don't think it's a good idea to spend $50 million on a new building. I think the Herald Square people make a very good case. I understand there's some limitations with the accessibility, parking. I think a combination of using Herald Square and then the lower floors of the Steri building that are currently the downtown Ithaca Conference Center that is, kind of circling the drain and hemorrhaging money would be a better way to accomplish what this whole project is intended to do. And, right now the estimate's $50 million. Who knows what that could balloon to by the time the project's over. So I just don't think it's a good idea. So that's all I have to say. Thank you. And I have to go return some videotapes.
Zach, I just want to point out, because I appreciate your comments, that this project is, the center of government building is not a $50 million building. It's that number is inclusive of some of the refurbishments to other buildings that could potentially be made in this process, could also potentially not be made if costs get out of control. The current price tag on the building is less than that, right? Mid-30s maybe.
Right.
So I just think that's important to keep in mind, the difference between the actual building cost and then also other project expenses that are maybe more optional as we look through the budget and continue to refine that number. I just want to make that distinction for everybody at home, because I do think that that's an important distinction to make. It is not a $50 million building. The project as fully presented ranges in that, but we could move forward with pieces or parts of that project and not spend that full 50, 60 million. But your point is heard and well taken.
Thank you. So I had Susan and then Shauna. I don't know if I can't see Susan anymore, but her hand was up first. Okay, Shauna?
Here I am.
Oh.
Sorry, it keeps muting on me. I just have one question about demolition. How much advance notice will there be for the start of demolition?
Our intent is that we would go to the properties adjacent to the buildings that are going to be deconstructed and do surveys of, photographs, interior, exterior of the buildings, and then also, as I said, install seismic monitors. So my guess in working with the contractors and their testing companies, it's going to be probably three weeks prior to the start of the work. Before we even get to the deconstruction, we're going to be removing materials and components from each of the buildings and then starting asbestos abatement. And so the abatement itself in each building will take 3 to 4 weeks anyway. So we'll be putting fencing around the building, so it'll be obvious to most of the residents in the adjacent properties when that type of work starts. But as I said before, we do the deconstruction itself. We will be meeting and visiting the surrounding properties, not only on this side of the block, but also directly across the street of the proposed buildings that are being deconstructed.
Great. I just want to be able to give tenants a heads up. Some of them may choose to work from home during the noisiest part of this. But sure. I love that you're having this downtown for people where buses come. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Shauna?
Great, thank you. I just want to say thank you to the community neighbors for showing up tonight. I think communication is absolutely going to be key between our neighbors, our community, and if there are problems along the way, if there are concerns, that those are voiced to one of our county contacts. This is absolutely a community project, and so the input is going to be really essential. For me personally, I still can continue to have concerns about the parking situation for our employees, and I would ask that if and when we decide to pursue this location in this building, that we have a plan moving forward, because we have employees that come to work every day and they shouldn't have to walk halfway across town in order to get to work. I also have some really serious concerns about how people that are coming to this building to do county business are actually going to park their cars and where. We know that the city is looking for additional revenue. They're raising the cost of parking. And, unfortunately, I personally don't like the idea that people are going to have to pay to do their county business.
Thank you. I have a couple more questions in the Q&A.
Sure.
Okay.
We have about 15 or 20 minutes more presentation, but we're happy to be here as long as you like.
Yeah, this is part of the construction. Just asking where will the mass timber be sourced from? Isn't timber actually full of carbon? So how does it qualify as low embodied carbon?
It's comparable, right? You're comparing against
So the alternative to the trees aren't being burned, so the carbon remains in the tree. And when a tree is growing, it's removing carbon from the environment, as opposed to like structural steel or concrete that takes an enormous amount of carbon to produce. I mean, just if you think about the heat that goes into, let alone mining the steel, the heat that goes into sort of melting it and forming it, that's the level of carbon we're talking about. A tree is it's a carbon sink during its growth, and then we cut it down, we use it in our building for the structure, and nothing ever happens to that carbon. It stays in the tree.
It's the carbon in the air that's the problem, not the carbon in the wood. That's the best place for it, rather than in the air.
Yeah, I was just going to use that word. Greg said to me, sequestered. So while the timber is in use in the building, you could kind of, the carbon that it has absorbed during the time that it was alive is sequestered in the building, and that product could be used again, at least for what our technologies are now. You know, we don't really have an easy way to use concrete or other materials. And if we did the processing, again, the amount of carbon you have to put in to reprocess, transport and grind up and figure out how to reformat all that material, where a timber could be used. You know, I've seen timbers, if you've been in other buildings around here, you've probably seen timbers from another building put into a new building a couple of times.
Okay.
I think we can move
on?
Yeah.
Great.
All right, I'm just going to pick up on where we left off at the last community meeting, so I'm going to give a quick recap of where we were there. The last time we were here, we showed the plans that are on the screen as a concept. The green areas that you'll see are circulation, support, shared spaces, and then you'll see how the different departments were called out at the perimeters of the building on the north and south side. We've developed that a lot. We've had over 30 meetings with departments, and they will continue until we get that fully refined. And we looked at it more closely at each of the departments. So you'll see, like on the first floor plan, as we have the COFA in there, is a good example of what we're typically doing on the north side of the building. It's perimeter offices along the top, exterior walls with windows, and then it's open office inside of that. That'll be just flexible space. And the flexible space there, we're showing layouts currently. Furniture hasn't been fully designed, developed, and decided on. We're just showing it for fit to show that we have the right number of people in there and the future growth built into it. On the south side, you'll also see very similar. We put some offices on the perimeter with exterior windows, and then along the interior of all these offices, there's more glazing to let some of that natural light filter through inside also. The main areas are here is the entry lobby, so this is right off the plaza that you saw in the site, and carrying that in through the building. Then there's a small public waiting here, and some waiting areas here. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how those spaces are used. It has single circulation, a single corridor circulation throughout the building, and that moves into the suites. So we've minimized just the circulation space to make it a more efficient building. So these were sketches of the entry lobby, the interior, and a couple of those areas. I think it's been 3 months now since last time we showed these, so they were preliminary concepts that we had put out there. And we've continued to develop this based on the feedback that we got. Here's some of the key things that we heard about the lobby itself as being a large lobby that's a usable lobby for the public and the employees. The biggest things there were training rooms and community meeting spaces. And into our plan, we built in small, medium, and medium conference rooms that can be used, that are accessible from the public areas. The public computers, we will filter throughout the lobby also. So not only do you have access to the electronic forms, the idea is that you are right there where there's help at the desk if you are having trouble with it. Well, you're filling them out at the place. Kiosks with information was a great idea. That came up in one of the public meetings. They could just filter upcoming events or different things that you need access to could just be displayed there, and it could be ever changing depending on what's needed at different times of the year. Also, there was a lot of interest in the historic side of Tompkins. So putting displays, artwork, historical things. So some of the things that we're looking at now are monitors that can show the history of Tompkins and the site itself. We are removing 3 buildings, so showing some of the historical nature of this site. It has changed a number of times from residential housing into what you see there now, and it'll be changing again. So some of that can be present there, as well as if there are items that we can salvage from the building that can be on display, and I'll show you one example of that a little bit later. Charging stations in the lobby, and then the quiet waiting areas, which will show how we broke that up a little bit as we move forward. With the survey questions about the entry lobby, some of the ideas for design that we designed from were the references to nature and what Tompkins County really is. What is it that we love about this? And some of that carried into the site and also carries into the building as an extension of that. I mentioned the history and events and displays coming up. They were also, you can see on the chart here, that's pretty well divided between these items, you know, from 26 to 33% on each of those was there. The small seating areas I'll talk about. And then the one-stop shop that we've been talking about for a while. It seems like a lot of people were interested in that if they could go in and do pretty standard, typical stuff at one location without jumping from department to department. So having some access to that as you come into the lobby immediately and efficiently. So that has been incorporated into the design also. So some of what we did here, walking through the interiors a little bit, is just mimicking what was out there in the nature. And while we're not putting a water feature in the interior, some of the things that we are thinking about is you bring in stone inside and bring in a color scheme that that reflects the nature that's out there, and bringing that into the building through that. And into organic shapes that you'll see here seem to be a big draw with some of the discussions that we had. Small breakout lobby areas similar to this. These are just inspiration photos. This isn't a design. The organic forms we're doing in a minimal way. You can see, you know, it's not overboard, but it's playing into softer corners and that geometry that starts to go through there. And this is images, this is at this point in the design, these are images representing some of what we're looking at. So this is, as you come through the main entry, this is that one-stop area that you'll see there, and that gives everybody access. That's kind of where everybody will go through and then meet up with a department if they have to, or take care of transactions directly there. Well, this isn't a finished design. Some of the ideas that we're putting out there, you know, with the map of Tompkins County on the wall, the kiosks and the monitors start to show up and how that's going to start to develop. And we hope we get more feedback today about that. What you'll see on the north, this is the public. There's a typical public small waiting area right off the one stop, and that carries up through the 3 floors of the office spaces in the elevator lobby and this breakout. And you can see, I can't zoom in on that, but you can start to see what we're seeing here is the glass, and behind it, that is the grading that's on the professional building right now, being reused and put in there, that's currently over the glass that's at that building, just to pay homage to that a little bit. And that would carry up through the 3 floors of the public stair that runs on the east side of the building. Finishes are basically, we're looking at colors that we bring in. The color palette is just warm whites and light colors drawn from nature, the taupes and the greens that are out there. And then in certain areas, some wood that would start to bring an accent into that. And then some of this layered stone possibly. That has to be developed more, but if we could mimic some of what we're seeing in the gorges, that would be terrific. You know, maybe a rougher cut stone with a lot of depth to it. And then lighting, we can play with the lighting to group areas instead of build walls everywhere. This whole flexible building that we're building, the idea would be to break it out with color and lighting into smaller areas that are more comfortable as we go. And I'll switch back just a little to give an example of, as we do this, you know, here would be like the clerk's entrance, the county clerk's entrance, and there could be small waiting here with some of that furniture as we go. And that could just, well, not dividing the lobby, we could just bring down a little bit of a soffit lighting that could make that a more comfortable zone. We're gonna keep moving into exterior, and then we'll pull all the questions about the design together at the end. So a lot of the discussions in the community meetings centered around how do we incorporate this building into what they're calling the downtown campus, which are the other buildings owned by the county down there. And along with the Boardman House and the church, you know, to fit into its environment. What we're seeing here is the main courthouse is part of that, the Boardman House, and what we're drawing on is some of these brick and limestone features into the new design that we're doing. These were all of the designs that were presented at the last community meetings. And we presented these options, and a lot of the comments that we got back centered on the first concept. That seemed to be the direction that people were the happiest with. And they liked it because of the brick. They liked the brick, they liked a little bit of the limestone at the entry, you know, accenting that along with the plaza out there, and that attractive mix that comes between that, breaking down the scale of the building. As we went forward, Quay mentioned earlier that it's basically a 3-story building. The 4th story that's on there is pulled back from the face. So from street viewpoint and stuff, it scales the building down much closer. So it isn't overpowering the Boardman House. People like that a step back. They also like the front entry, which this didn't show, but more discussion showed a more grand stair ramp entry into the center of that building here, and we started to accent that more. And then natural light. Natural light was important in the large windows that were there. So if you see, this is from the survey, and the words that you're seeing are basically the ones that are pulled out for most used in the comments and responses that we got back. So the brick you'll see, the Boardman House was important, the building, the matching the buildings in the area, and a mix of materials. So it wasn't one large mass that was set on the corner there. When we talked about the styling, you'll see the first response is almost 60% was historic proportions with the contemporary materials. But that was followed closely behind with historic civic. So we rolled this together as we moved forward with that being over 80% of the comments focused on that. This is the concept at the point that we are now. Again, as Quay mentioned earlier, like 50% through design. So this is good for us to get feedback on early now, so please do that. So the top elevation that we're looking at is looking at it from Buffalo. And this is that limestone entrance, and this is that raised plaza that is there. And then we break it up to bring the scale down and mimic some of what has happened at the Boardman House, a slightly larger than that. And the step back at the top is, that material is still up there. We're looking at metal now because it's pulled back and not seen, but how do we, not to look like a large metal house on it. The coloring will play off what is there. The bottom view is from Tioga Street. And that again has the where it turns the corner for the stone entry and the same things. And what you'll start to notice here is how we just took a little bit of that stone detailing to move it into the brick, similar to what we're seeing on the main courthouse and the old jail. So we carry that just through in detail without overdoing it there, but so it carries around. And the other two sides, which aren't shown here, would be the same as these brick areas. It would be brick with stone accent or a precast accent that matches up well from the backside looking at it and from the courtroom or courthouse. This is the intersection of Buffalo and Tioga looking at that entry. You'll see, so we're looking through the plaza and bringing you up in, and the brick that we see under here is that entry vestibule, and then it moves into the lobby that the interior images were. And as we scale down, so this is the white here is the Boardman, and from this angle it looks much closer than it is. So as we turn, you can see that there is more space and the park between Boardman here on the left and the new building there. Currently, I think there's like 4 to 6 foot maybe between the Boardman and the building that's currently there. That buffer will still be there with the plantings and stuff that are there, and then added to that is the other like 26 feet that we have before the face of our building and the walk that goes between it. So
is
again,
the pictured weather included?
Excuse me?
Is the pictured weather included?
The weather. You know, our first image was all snow, I have to say, but at this time of year, we're all hoping we don't get too much of that. So we backed off from actually making it this month and brightened it up a little. So some of the features that we have on here, again, that played off the comments that we had. People like the larger columns out in front that still played off what was happening at the main courthouse in a slightly more contemporary way. The scaling of that, we've reduced some of the glass that was here. Originally, that was like a 2-story glass lobby, but a lot of the comments we had said, can we bring that down so it's more enclosed as we move into the space? The response to that was carry some of the brick with larger openings, still letting in some of that light and brightening up the lobby. And then that is it for the interior, exterior to the level that we are now. So I'd love to hear comments and questions.
Yeah, I'll also say this last slide, there's a QR code, and you can just hit that with your phone. And we'd ask that in the QR code, I think there are just 4 questions asking about, site design, sustainability, building interior, building exterior. So if you're not comfortable providing a sort of comment verbally to everyone, we'd invite you and ask you to sort of submit your thoughts and comments on the different aspects of the project in this final community survey.
Thank you very much. I think we have a question from Louise.
I have lots of hands up. Greg was.
Yeah, a couple of quick questions, and this maybe is directed at Rel. I want to make sure form and function are lined up, and building maintenance has a chance to weigh in on material selections, things like that. I have a little bit of a concern with too much white, because sometimes you see white, especially with a lot of natural light, gets like fading and dull and kind of grimy looking over time, or the edges are kind of dirty because it's not really maintained in a certain way. So I love plants and I love green and all that sort of stuff, but I just want to make sure that ongoing maintenance and operational costs and concerns are addressed in that process. So that's first comment. We have a vibrant mural and sort of public arts community here. I hope that maybe we can find some space similar to what like the Chamber did. Like they have a beautiful mural in the new Chamber of Commerce building with like of the waterfalls, kind of like in an abstract. If there's some way, I noticed that map up there, but I would really love to make sure that we use a local artist as opposed to buying, you know, some giant sticker or something like that. I think that would be important. Not saying that that's what you're proposing. And then the other question is, because we do have such a vibrant street art community, the washability and maintainability of the exterior surfaces, how I'm not advocating for or suggesting that, but would just want to make sure that the materials that we do use have a high degree of cleanability and the ability to be sort of resurfaced in the event that someone doesn't enjoy the large canvas that we may create.
Yeah, I appreciate all those. We've, throughout the whole design process currently, and as we continue, those aspects are things that we will drill more and more as we discuss with Holt. I've involved many of our staff on the maintenance side, but also on the cleaning side, these discussions. And as we get to the point of construction documents and specifications, we would want to select materials that are easy to maintain and easy to clean. So yes, these are things that that I like, because I have to operate the buildings too. So as much as I love the design and the construction part, then I also have to look at how the maintainability of them. So yeah, these are things that we brought up, and that Holt is very open to discussing those things. So thank you for that comment.
Yeah. Louise?
Louise, are you still there?
Sorry, yeah, okay. My comment is, I liked a lot of the lighting, creating spatial places. My big underlined request is that handicapped seating be available. I know in a lot of the pictures, it shows a person in a wheelchair, which I guess indicates handicapped accessibility, but there has to be seating that is people in walkers who come in, or other elderly people, or things like that. And those seating aspects should be highly visible, and they should be in proximity to where people might have to stand and wait in line in front of a window or something like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There are 3 design ideas that were in the Q&A. One is suggest putting offices with doors on the interior and cubicles on the perimeter. Just an idea.
We looked at a lot of different ways to make this a flexible building that was going to sustain the county for the next 50 years, and that was one that we were pushing for really hard, and we did a lot of tests to try and make that happen. And you just need a lot more cubicles and a lot fewer offices to put cubicles on the perimeter, right?
In addition to the names of the towns in Tompkins County, could you have building mosaics or building medallions above the windows that have the outlines, stylized maps of the towns?
Yeah, we can definitely consider that. We'll put that in there for discussion. This is very conceptual with those. It was one of the comments we heard early on, was that they liked that each of the towns were listed, but we haven't delved into the design of what that would be yet. So I think we should explore that more.
The other one is, if you are honoring all municipalities with names, which is a nice idea, remember that there are 10. The town of Ithaca and city of Ithaca are distinct municipalities.
Thank you. I didn't realize that, yes.
Yep. Thanks, everybody, for those. There were 2 others. Will the county provide more detailed information on costs for each of the 4 options and allow the public to weigh in on that aspect? Looking for a comparison, apples to apples, so if some costs are not actually for the building, those should not be included. I don't know.
I think that was referring to your 4 options that you reviewed before.
Yes, we will do that.
Can I respond just quickly to about the names of the towns on the outside? So those are, we decided to do just the towns. We didn't do the villages or the city. That would be a bit more cumbersome to try and do all that. So we decided on the towns. It's a couple different ways we could have gone. So no slight to the city or city of Ithaca or villages of Cayuga Heights or Trumansburg or so on.
Yes, and they are on the building in alphabetical order, if you'll notice also.
And possibly inside we could do something to an homage to the other villages and things like that.
Yeah, I think that is what we were looking for in the lobby. I mentioned it like history and Tompkins County. I think that's it. None of that is fully developed, only that we know that it wants to be part of it from our discussions that we've had with everybody. So ideas for that are terrific.
I think we've got a great history center. I know in the Government Operations Committee, we just heard from them, and I mean, they've got some incredible work and things like that. If there'd be a way to potentially, at the right point, engage them, I think that would be an excellent way to sort of curate some sort of historical installation or reference back, because they do an incredible job with all of the exhibits that they put together.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and we'd love to get together with them.
Rotating display too.
We work through this.
So I have one, so it said, we had someone write in, wait, Shauna said, if and when we pursue this option, I thought this was a done deal on the project. So this was.
So we have authorized the project to continue forward, and it is, but we have not, put the money on the table yet. So I think that's probably what that meant.
We do have capital funds though currently in the budget, that cash, we haven't bonded for anything, that are supporting the current ongoing costs incurred by the progress of the project.
Yes, $9 million in the bank, and the rest would be bonded. Right?
Or state or federal grants potentially.
Or grants, yeah.
Thank you. And I'm not sure. I have something else here, but I'm not. It was a suggestion for the facade, but there's nothing else with it. So that's all the questions and answers I had on the line. Anybody else has anything?
I have a question from here. Will you be able to take us through a bit of what the next steps looks like as the project team?
Sure. I mean, there are a lot of facets to this project. I think one of the critical next steps is obviously the deconstruction, which is independent of the development of the design for the new building. So, we are sort of finalizing the bid on the deconstruction project, and then, as Arel mentioned, you'll start to see fencing. We'll have to post. My answer to this. How much advance notice, the minimal advance notice is the posting for the hazardous material abatement. Right. So the deconstruction will begin. From a design perspective of the new building, our next steps are to review the feedback that we get from the community from this engagement, and then wrap up the design development documents, which will be another big sort of milestone in terms of coordination with the county, because we'll sit down with Arel's team, review with all the users and the departments within the building, and then really start to get in more deeply with the facilities, mechanical, plumbing, fire protection, so that the facilities team that's going to support this building for the next 30, 50 years understands what's going into it now and has the opportunity to make modifications before it gets built, rather than sort of getting something and needing to live with it. So we'll continue to work very closely with the county through design. I think the new building goes to bid in November 2026. I think November 2026, when we would at that point, we would get actual bids from contractors, and then we would make a final decision on whether we have a bid that we're in a position to award to begin to construction on the new center government building.
Thank you. Any additional questions?
Actually, I just want to add something. I think that Terry Carroll mentioned the reason that we can't expand the heat pump system is because we don't have the physical land to do it with. And I think the only way that could happen to expand to everybody else would be able to do holes in DeWitt Park. You'd have to, so that's not something that the county can take on, and it's quite complicated, but that's the only way you could do the entire campus is by expanding the land that you have to drill holes. Is that correct?
Yeah, almost. I would say, like, and I was thinking I thought Ann gave a great response to that geothermal question. You know, I was just going to add, like, on behalf of the county, that independently of this project, the county was pursuing and still is in the process of pursuing a district geothermal system. The question being, how much capacity do we have within the available land, Randy, to execute a geothermal well field, and then how much more capacity will that field have once we max it out, in addition to the center of government building. The concern and the opportunity is that we have this water that we expect to, so the county is in the process of doing a couple of wells, so we have some real data. We anticipate finding natural water at between 20 and 30 feet, which from the perspective of a closed loop system, a deep well system, which would be 300 to 500 feet we'd be going down. A lot of times you'll see when we talk about geothermal, we're referring to closed loop, which is a 500-foot bore well. With that water, and we believe there's precedent for that water being fairly clean, there's the opportunity to consider an open loop system, which from the perspective of efficiency and capacity would be much higher, actually. So if the water is of a quality that we can, it's not going to just constantly plug up and corrode, the loop that it's running through. We might, if we're going to be optimistic, maybe there is more capacity there, because if the water is of a quality that we can utilize an open loop system. So yeah, the only variable to, like, the amount of land we have is whether we do a closed loop or an open loop geothermal well field.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other question? Okay, thank you very much. Do you have any other comment for us as we look to close today?
No, I guess my general comment would be that how fantastic it is to work for not only a client, but a government legislature that is, like, so in line with the values that, like, we have as a design team. So from the perspective of sustainability, and from the perspective of geothermal, and from the perspective of, like, how as you as a county want to treat your employees that are living in this building every day, it's been a pleasure, like, working with this whole team on the county side and the legislature, because you're asking the right questions and you want to build the building that we want to design. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I think, as I said earlier, this is the furthest we have gone for the past 20 years as we look to do this project. I think this is the first time we're actually seeing designs and what it could potentially look like, and we are really excited about that. Next steps are also crucial, are essential as we move through the project options and discussions, and also making decisions how we move forward from here. So we're very excited, and we look forward to the next phase of the project and making sure we develop something that will be long-lasting, that will stay the course of time, and also we can all be proud of what we will accomplish in the long run. So thank you for your work, and we appreciate you showing up, tuning in and engaging with us and sharing your ideas and asking your questions. And as we said earlier, we are really happy to hear from our neighbors, how they think, what they want to see, and the fact that we are also being aware of the value of DeWitt Park and demonstrating that in the design and the concept itself. I'm very proud of what we've done so far. So thank you all for showing up. And the questions can keep coming. Please do visit the website, the counties. We have a dedicated website for the project, and submit your questions or your feedback or your directions. And this is a community project, and your input is crucial in executing the project. So thank you very much.